Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Advance Your Art with Yuri Cataldo. If you're interested in learning how to build a company, make money from your art, or transition to a new career, you've come to the right place. If you like this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Today, I have the very strong privilege of being joined by the independent artist, Amy Gordon. Amy, hello, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am lovely and hope you are.
I am. All things considered, things are going well. So for my audience who is not as familiar with you and your work, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
I am a abstract artist, and abstract art is really what you would call non-representational, meaning you do not see forms. And if you look at what forms are, they're visual shapes or configurations or some type of theme which a thing appears, and that is kind of subjective to the individual. And I'm trying to convey through my work that abstracts are kind of like therapy, and they move us out of forms and into what could be. And what could be meaning what you are and what you see, how you interpret the world. So it almost kind of just gives you some freedom. Mm-hmm. You emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
I like it. And for the listeners, there's a thunderstorm happening in the background at Amy. But as we mentioned, I love that it's punctuating some of your words, which is absolutely fantastic right now. So before because I want to hear more about your work, but beforehand, I want to back up just a little bit and talk about your early days. Sure. So what originally made you want to study textile design in school?
I am from North Carolina, which is a textile manufacturing state. And really, when you're growing up, you kind of don't know exactly what you want to be, but you kind of feel into who you are. And I was very involved in creating and paints and fabrics and just kind of designing. So I was always making things, and I went to North Carolina State and majored in textile and design, which then matriculated me to New York City, working with menswear companies, to where I would color forecast 2 years in advance the threads that would be used in a men's suit, which are very minute. The difference is, okay, your suit's going to be gray, charcoal gray, blue-gray, blue. So that kind of moved me into the design world, and I was kind of in charge of doing all the presentations and kind of just putting thematics together in terms of kind of where culturally and we were going, as a collective. Mm-hmm. And that just moved me because that was very restrictive. I'm just completely rebellious, and normal is a curse word. So I would just unleash and just, paint and use my art as an expression of communication. I was in New York City and I felt very restricted. Mm-hmm. I left literally rural North Carolina, and I would just walk around and look at the skyscrapers like they were pieces of, if they were trees, you'd be in a forest, and I was thinking, I can't really escape. So that was kind of my escape. And then that propelled me into just you get to a point in your life where I'm not working for anybody except myself. And if I'm going to, propagate something, I'm going to propagate Amy and how I can free, like really, it's like, how can I free us? How
Mm-hmm.
can I move from, what's right or wrong? And because there's no right way, it's only the light way. And how can I elevate us as a society kind of in my small way?
I love it. What's interesting is, so many people hold the idea of working in the fashion industry to a very high regard.
Mm.
And your description of it is very, I wouldn't say mundane, but you were in charge of picking out colors. And that's not, when I think of like, Deborah Wells Prada or the idea of the fashion industry, that is not the reality that, that I think of. So what was, and while you were there, I guess even before that, when you first took the job in menswear, did you think it was going to be something more grandiose and working in fashion? And if not, how did that relationship with, let's say, the fashion and textile world evolve while you were there?
It's kind of funny. You're right, because when people would say, in cocktail parties, what do you do? Well, I do menswear, and people would kind of go, "Oh, fancy," and I would say, "Yeah, it's really materialistic, but like I'm making material." And I just really felt like it was really fake, and I felt like, you know what? At the end of the day, we're not going to be wearing suit. What do we need to be dressing up and wrapping, this harness around our neck, especially in menswear with like
Mm-hmm.
I did worsted menswear. I just, I didn't like it. And it just was really, it's just, I just am too rebellious to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So, yeah, it just led me into paint. And then when it's kind of like, that's just was, I emancipate myself through paint. Is kind of like I say, I like release it through paint. I emancipate it to a canvas, and then I manifest it into something tangible
Mm-hmm.
that you can use as your own. It's not mine. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
idea of like, I'm gonna wear Gucci. My daughter will say that. I'd like saying, you're not wearing Gucci. You don't even know him. Like, no, wear yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And it's just it's kind of a movement. I feel like it's just, you're taking something that you can see and then kind of manipulating it into some form of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it like art therapy as a concept. It's really like if you move this into your home and you become in a relationship with it. I kind of look at it like relationship art. You move with it. It changes with the light and shades of the night, and it moves with your mood, and you grow with it, and you're connected with it, and you're going to see something different in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
So with, let's say, the transition from what you were doing before to your art, I want to ask you about that moment, which you've alluded to a little bit, but the moment where you decided, I'm done with New York, I'm done with fashion. This is now, my art is now what is going to move me forward. What was that like? And what were you feeling that allowed you to then do that? And after you thought all that, where did you end up going with your art?
yeah, I guess what you're saying too is because doing this type of work, I mean, it's very, very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of, we have this idea of the struggling artist and that it's going to be very difficult for you to make a living out of this type thing, right?
Right.
Um, I decided to I don't know. It was almost like the thunder or something hit me, and I said, I am going to just put everything I have into this, and I will not fail. You know what I mean? And then what degree of success? What's the bar anyway? You know, if I'm just putting it out there and doing it for myself, then, you know, enough will be enough. So I kind of just went forward with it like that. And then I love that you've got this podcast, because I mean, it is it's scary, and it's so many different ways to go. Do I need to have this degree, and do I need to hire this type of person in terms of marketing? I mean, and I just say, I've been doing this professionally for probably 10, maybe, no, you know what? Interesting, 8 years exactly this year. I decided just to market myself, and I started doing it a little bit differently. I started kind of putting it out there. I would make cards, and I would take them to little local boutiques. I would pack up my truck and drive to designers that I knew in town, or some stores that were just opening, and I would walk in, and I'm not kidding. It's kind of like the gods were with me. I would walk in and, you know, cold call. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an artist. Are you interested in like showcasing my work? And I would bring a couple pieces in, and literally it was like that they had commissioned me to paint for this vignette, and everything sold out there. And then it just kind of spiraled to where, I mean, and I didn't really, I wasn't involved with galleries because I didn't want, you know, I've kind of already alluded to the fact that I'm a rebel, and I didn't really want anyone dictating what the price was going to be, and how it was going to be shown, and that they would have to go through them. It's almost, you know, I'm cutting out the middleman. It's just, I wanted it to be very intimate with who purchased my art, because it was almost like, you know, I'm a surrogate mother, and I'm giving you this child, and I wanted to make sure it has a good home type thing. So then it became where word of mouth, like, oh, well, I need this, I would like something. And people always really, you know, we were talking a bit before we started taping, how there is a piece of the art community that's very, very, you know, it's high end, it's very educated. And there is another portion that wants art and wants something beautiful and something meaningful, that doesn't really, their eye is not trained, or they don't know what they want. And so kind of my slogan to them was like, I'll paint you what you never thought you always wanted. So I will kind of go into, I call it almost like an energetic interview, and I'll go into their space and I'll feel it out, and I'll say, okay, well, I think this, I know what you need. I know what size. And then it's never happened, knock on wood yet, but that I'll just show up back with it. And it's unbelievable. I mean, I had one time where this lady, I put it up, and we just, you know, propped it on the back of her sofa, and she said, oh my gosh, Amy, like, I see this. And I said, oh my gosh, well, why don't you just wait and have a glass of wine till your husband comes back? And because, you know, he needs to relate to it too. And I said, wait a minute, does horses mean anything to you? And she said, oh my gosh, I call my, you know, yes, I love horses. And I said, this is kind of like a medieval, like, horse with like armor on it. And she said, oh my gosh, I call him my knight in shining armor. And I said, oh my Lord, I had to sit down. I mean, it's just, and it changes, you know, like I'll have a piece somewhere and someone says, I see this, I see that, which I love. And I don't put that in there. It's not intentional. It's just, it's energy is really what it is. So it's kind of a different approach, but it's just really worked well for me. And it's because it's really personal. I haven't really done online as much. I just think it's a little less personal, but addressing COVID, the world is going that way. So I am trying to do a little bit of that. I just feel like it kind of takes away from you know, it's hard to look at art online, but people do it, and people sell really well that way. So I need to matriculate into that sector. But right now,